Welcome to CityMakers Voices, presented by the Wholesome Foundation. In this series, we sit down with the top minds shaping the urban environment. Our fourth episode is with Sofian Sibarani, urban designer and founder of Urban Plus, the studio behind Nusantara, Indonesia's new capital. He sits down with our host, journalist Nolan Giles, at the 2025 Wholesome Foundation Forum in Venice. Here, they discuss the move of the nation's capital from Jakarta to Borneo, designing with the terrain, and Indonesian vernacular wisdom. The urban designer starts by recapping the 2019 master plan competition his firm won.
Okay, so I think we are mostly known for our role in winning the Capital City of Indonesia competition back in 2019. So yeah, we've been working on these so-called mega projects that is very unprecedented in Indonesia. It's pretty big project. It's a new town. It's in a new area. Jakarta is in so-called peril situation and threatened by a lot of challenges. I think we want to do something to kind of like mitigate that and moving it to somewhere else.
So before we dig into the problems of Jakarta, because we could do a 5-hour show about that.
Yeah, for sure, yes.
Before we move to Jakarta, let's look at what you had in terms of a site.
Okay.
I guess why it was chosen, and what were the key elements you were thinking about.
Yes, so I think we work in a very different level of national level. Why we want to move it to Kalimantan, which is one of the 17,000 island of Indonesia, just for a fact. So Kalimantan is an island that is more safer, perceived to be safer because there is no volcano activity there. And then it's also one of the area where geopolitically part in the middle of Indonesia. So if you go left, right, top, down, Kalimantan is right in the middle. So I think our government want to send some message about fairness, about more even development between the islands, because 56% of the people in Indonesia live in one island called Java, which is shocking because we have 16,000 island that is not Java, right? So why move in Jakarta? I mean, why stay in Java while we have the other islands? But that's the macro level or national level. But zoom in into the area where specifically the capital city is, we are looking at multiple factors. One is, I think one of the most important one is availability of the land that is owned by the government. In Indonesia, especially, if you have a good project, if you have a good client, if you have a good land, very strategic, but the land is not easy to acquire, it won't happen as what you thought. So I think one of the first primary concern is where is the land that is in control by the government. And the second one, of course, we try to find an area that is least sensitive from the environmental point of view, because from the sustainability point of view, we really want to have a less disturbance to the nature system, and not like thankfully, but coincidentally, the location that was given to us was actually a heavily disturbed landscape area, because Kalimantan is known for, Borneo is known for the lung of the world, lung of the south. I mean Asia, because it's filled with dense forests. That's the image. If you go to the movie Kong, right? They went to Borneo. That's the kind of image of thick forest. But that's forest. Part of the area in Kalimantan is no longer like that. It's already been cut back in the 90s. This is a golden opportunity for us to reforest it. But we work with the area that is least sort of like environmentally sensitive, which is part of the hilly part of the area that is now used for paper plantation, which is eucalyptus and acacia. Hundreds of thousands of hectares like this was destroyed in the 90s. Now we are refilling it. But then the area, there's not always a win-win situation or a perfect situation where everything is checked, right? It's actually undulating. So it is something that it's unlike Jakarta, unlike many other cities in Indonesia that are flat. This is a little bit hilly, not mountainous, but hilly, which presents certain level of response. We need to respond to how the nature present itself and how we want to interact with the nature. So that's how this sort of approach start to come up in our capital city design.
So in my head now, I'm imagining like a beautiful rainforest being restored, an oasis, an urban oasis springing up out of it.
Yeah.
People suddenly discover from Indonesia just discovering this new part of their home country. Like it all sounds good in theory.
Yeah.
So, but where do you go next? So you've worked with the government to identify the site. You obviously engage with many different stakeholders at that point, but you're still kind of in like a brownfield, greenfield situation, right?
Yeah.
Where are you going next? Are you knocking on architects' doors for collaboration? Are you, yeah? Tell me what happens next.
So our role at that time was the winner of the master plan, which is somewhat between the scale of 50,000 hectares, which is the size of Singapore or Jakarta. That's the kind of context that we have to think about. So you need to think about that kind of macro scale. But then we also were tasked to do a 6,000 hectares sort of like town. That's the size of, in Indonesia, probably one of the satellite towns called BSD, Bumi Serpong Damai, or in Singapore, maybe one of the Tampines together with, the area around it.
Like a suburb.
It's like a suburb of 6,000 hectares for 300,000 people. So I think there are several sort of scientific and probably more technical way to actually divide those numbers into areas of neighborhoods and clusters. So our role is to provide those roadmap, but we really need to set up the principles because this is something that I think I learned a lot from my previous sort of experience in multiple companies. The way you pick an area and how you interact with the nature is crucial. In fact, a lot of the case, architects always start with we come first, and then the landscape person come later, or the infrastructure structural people come later. In fact, to me, it's the other way around. We need the ecologists to come in, tell us where to build and not to build. Where are the animal crossing? Where are the water gonna need to flow? The geologist needs to tell us which area that is stable to build. Don't build something that is eventually have certain level of erosion or anything. So those advisory, not in very detail, not to bog down too much on sort of like very deep sort of research, but it's a very good sort of like just information that is needed. Yes, we are the one with the first stroke of a line that drawing it, but we need to be informed, and that information is precious. So be patient before you go straight away to say this is my triangle, this is my boxes and all the crazy architectural shape that you want to do. Wait until you get the clearance of what is possible and not possible, what is allowable and not allowable. And once you have that, then you get inspired by, I was inspired the fact that if I listen to the environment more, my city start to look like clusters of blobs of islands of development. Hence, that's our design is called Nagara Rimbanusa, a city that is located in the forest and archipelago.
Before we started this interview, I remember you saying something. You created the plots in a certain way that you can't, in shorthand, for me, it sounded like you can't do cookie cutter development in this place. You have to be thinking about the site in a very specific way that's suitable to the site because of what you're allocated in terms of a plot. So it sounds a little like you're almost you're preempting what the negative aspects of city planning entail. So how did that work?
Yeah, I think there is always an attraction, or there's always an intention that using a template that works. Like for example, I love New York blocks, so walkable. I love Portland, but then it works in New York, it works in Portland. It may not work elsewhere. So in our case, because the condition is undulating from 30 meter above sea level to 70 meter above sea level, within a spread of few kilometers only, uh, the attitude should be: do you want to flatten it first? We call it ironing it to get all the wrinkles out, but then you destroy the environment, or do you want to follow it? If you want to follow it, then there's no way we can make it rectangular or gridded or cookie cutting like a grid like in New York. San Francisco is the exception though. San Francisco is undulating, but it's actually cookie cutting, right? But you see some of the road going up, like in the Lombard Street, you have to go around. So it can happen during that time, maybe, and the geological condition of San Francisco is like that. But we choose not to adopt that. So we choose to follow the environment. So you end up with every road that you try to do is unique to the place that is located there. So it's not something that we can enforce or impose on, because the principle is we try to reduce the cutting and the filling. So the cut and the fill, because of the practicality also. Our government has a very limited time. We're given about 3.5 years from planning to the execution of the first building, which is the palace. So if we cut too much, if we fill too much, we're losing time and money. So we are following that, which is good, because then we end up with a very unique shape of the city that looks very organic, which is interesting. So I found that the nature actually inspire us if you want to work hard for it, because for all this modification, it means you cannot repeat, or you cannot cookie cut or copy paste this. Of course, the easiest way to draw a city like in the Sim City is copy, 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 and then the building just mushroom out of it, because it's typical. But in this one, you need to attend to it. It's like when you have a child, you need to know the personality, you need to know the character of it, you need to feed them with the right nutrition and the right food that they like or they need.
It sounds a lot like you actually are letting nature inform what you're doing with this new
Yes.
city. And I wonder, with Indonesia being, culturally so rich,
Yeah.
and I guess so many different cultures over the years and in different parts of the country, I'm sure that in the past there was smart Indonesians working and living with the land in a way.
Yeah.
How much did your studies of what people have done before,
Yes.
before we have all this crazy new technology,
Correct.
inform what you're doing?
Yes, yes, yes. That's spot on. It's really something that I want to share with everybody. Sometimes I was asked in many interviews, which city that become your model? Do you look to the Singapore? Do you look to U.S. Sort of like Washington, or is it Canberra? Is it Putrajaya? So I was stunned to say that I didn't need to look too far. I don't need to look out. I look inside. Indonesia has a wonderful wisdom of the vernacular architecture that is no longer existent. We don't do that anymore, because we are sort of like influenced by the industrial and the modernism sort of like architecture that we import from the Western model, or from the suppliers that create road in certain way, they create building in certain way. In the past, we have houses built on stilts, and we think that it's the old style. We don't. That's not modern. We don't do it anymore. That's where your grandfathers live. But there's a wisdom in that. There's a virtue that you divide the area of living, not embedded on the land, because you don't want to ruin it.
Yeah.
And they built on stilts, and the value of that is water can flow, the flood can come, and they're still safe. They know where the height of the house is, because the ancestor tell them build it higher, because floods come and go. And that's the time when there's no technology about flood prevention. There's no sort of like a tunnel of the water, or drainage system. They have to live with the nature, and with that limitation, you come up with a wisdom on how to avoid or how to minimally in sort of like impact the environment, and you have to stay where you are because you have a place in the world. And there is also a belief system. In Indonesia, we have this, I don't know whether it's religious or we call it cosmology. Back in the very old days, where certain things that is overwhelming us, something that is high, we call it higher being or divine being, like mountain. You cannot stop the mountain from erupting. We live around the mountain, and that become sort of like an area of where we want to respect the nature. Cities like Yogyakarta has the axis towards the Mount of Merapi. They know Merapi is erupting every now and then, but they still stay with it. But then they create this kind of like axis to respect the mountain. Bali also have Mount Agung the same way. Bandung has Tangkuban Perahu. Why we are worshiping mountains, right? It's actually our response on how we respect nature.
Totally. And that kind of ties into my final question. And we're just asking